Welcome to Make a Path Presents. I'm Ronnie Hayes, and today we're going to dive straight into the second video testing out a new series that we might end up doing focusing on writing. Now, it's not always going to be comic books. It's going to be certain characters, pilots of shows, movies, script writing, novel writing. It's going to be exploring the process all throughout different mediums. But in this test second video during my move, I thought I'd record two to see how well it works. We're going to look at writing a comic. Now, we're going to open this up and we're going to talk about the cover, the transition between pages, the panel layouts. We're going to talk about certain characters and what works story-wise, a bunch of random different things. Now, it's up to you guys to pinpoint and highlight specifics that you want to discuss, and we'll pull those for a future video. With that said, let's dive straight into Cannibal. This is by Image Comics, and this is kind of a zombie story, but not really. It is a virus that instead of turning people into a zombie, it turns them into a cannibal. So they're completely normal, but they have that desire and hunger to eat and to feast on human flesh. For a first cover, not knowing anything about it, I assumed this was zombie-like in the content. And just based off of the cover, I bought it alone because it looked like it was up my alley. So this was a complete blind buy for me. Now, when you open it up, right away you get an establishing shot. Now, this is identifying where it's located. Somewhere in Florida. These I don't like. I rarely ever like when they're used in anything, whether it's shows or comics. I understand, especially for more complicated stories, why they're used. I'm just saying, I'm not a fan. Anyway, I'm not a fan of thought bubbles and shit like that either, but little nitpick of mine. So anyway, this opens up. First establishing shot is Hogs River Bar and Grill. And then you got some conversation. It's just a kid taking out the trash. And again, I think this is mentioned so that way it's fluid for the reader in case you didn't pick up he's a busboy taking out the trash or dishwasher, whatever. So they mention it. So he goes outside, and again, this is your opener for the comic and the story. So he puts the trash out. He hears a noise. There's some dude there. And the guy's telling him, go back inside. The kid's asking, you okay? So obviously there's something wrong with the guy and he can't control himself. So it's setting it up. You've been drinking, yada, yada, yada. And then the guy attacks. No, why'd you have to come out here? So it's highlighting there's a problem that he can't resist. Told you to go back inside. Take it easy, man. I was just trying to help. Too late now. I'm just so hungry. So for an initial setup in just a couple pages, I think they did a really good job setting that up. The guy bites into his throat, tears him apart. I'm so sorry. So sorry. I mean, it's wicked. Nice little twist. And I love this shot here. The guy's just heartbroken at what he did. And blood's dripping off the dock and into the water. And it says Cannibal. Really like this page. I do like this opener. It's simple. The Hogs Bar and Grill is going to be a main place for the characters, so I understand why they open it up there. Plus, it leads fluidly into this initial outbreak. You didn't take up many pages setting up getting to this point, so that was great. And again, turning the page, it's still at Hogs, and it's Hogs Bar, and it is one of the other returning characters, setting up a character you'll see off and on. This guy's looking for somebody, and then the body's discovered, so they go outside, and then this guy, something's wrong with him. He's acting shady. So he left. He's not the same guy that attacked the kid, but something's shady with him. I guess you can already tell that he's bitten. That's what I thought when I first read it. So then the cops are called. Here's a double splash top panel. I don't even know what it's called because it's only taken up the top of the page. It's not like both pages in one image. But the cops come out. They talk somewhat about the incident, and then we're back at the bar, and they're going to go hunting for who did it. Now we're showing off a new character, so establishing shot. Again, you don't want your establishing shot. I should mention this. Sometimes it's easy to forget some of the more basic tips. You don't want your establishing shot in the middle of this page, in the middle of what's going on here. You can do it. If you need to squeeze it in the comic, there's ways to do it, as long as it's fluid. But right here, you wouldn't want it here. That's why it's always on a fresh page. For beginner comic writers, I feel it's easier to look at each page as one location. If you're going to be at the bar, make sure all the panels in the story fill out this whole page. And then if you're going to a new location, start it fresh on the other page. This is also, with digital, this isn't going to be a thing, but this is the flip reveal. I don't know if it has an official name, but every time you flip a comic, you get a reveal. It's no secret. You'll see something set up that's real crazy down here, and then when you get the flip, it's a reveal. You know what I mean? So always pay attention to what the page is going to be on. And if you have a character, like we had a character recently that there was a zombie behind him, and it was down here, and when you flip the page, he's bitten. And it's the flip reveal, because you don't want it over here. And as you're reading, your eye kind of wanders, because it's a huge, big, page of art, and it's easy for your eyes and peripheral vision to lock down what's going on. You don't want that. So save your flip reveals for on, it would be the even pages. Anyhow, so this girl comes out of the strip club. This guy we saw from the bar snatches her up. This, I feel, is a bit cheap. Maybe if they wanted to go this route, showing they're a bit wild and crazy. I got excited because I thought, oh, this is getting interesting. And then here it's just a couple that were role-playing or whatever. So that was, I felt, was a bit cheap, but I get it. You know, they're that type of couple, a little out there. Anyway, the story, there was something I wanted to talk about. The story goes back to them hunting the person. This gets a little flustered here, because as they're hunting the person, it's a bit confusing here and there, which maybe there's a smoother way to flesh that out. But sometimes don't get too hung up if it's a little bit it's a little confusing, because people can always just look back at the panels or look at them a little more clear to see what's going on. You don't want to get stuck where you're sitting at this page and trying to write the script and figure out how it's going to be outlined. Between you and the artist, or if you're the writer and the artist, if you make it a touch confusing, or you think it is a little bit, smooth it out the best you can, but don't get hung up on it. So I think this part confused me a bit. He's chasing the guy, and I didn't even notice that was the guy at first. And he's like, wait, Dad? And I was like, what do you mean, Dad? Is he your dad? Are you chasing your dad? I was like, what? And you didn't know that was his dad's house? Again, you have no idea whose house that is, so there's no way around it. Just do it how you feel here. And on my second read, I realized, okay, I know what's going on, especially when you get to this moment where his dad ends up shooting the intruder. Anyhow, now this is an interesting transition. You go to the house again, establishing shot. We're back at the cabin with the guy who kidnapped his girlfriend as a role-playing sexual joke. Anyway, he's talking about marrying her. Now, when you get to the bottom, how about we get hitched? When you flip the page, instead of an outside establishing shot, we're indoors at a location we already established, or they already established in the comic. And guess what he's doing? Think that guy's name is Cash. Anyway, think Cash is finally going to pop the question? Lord knows the answer to that, because I don't. Again, it flows from the last moment where he's talking to himself about popping the question. We go to a location they've already established, and it's connected because they're still talking about it. You could do small connections like that to get around having to do constant establishing shots. You don't always need a building or an outdoor or something at the top of your page. Anyhow, so this is a nice way to do a transition as well. He shows up, and he's been gone for a while, a long time, Roy, yada, yada, yada. And then it says here, I know you, Danny. This ain't one of your usual disappearing acts. And then it goes over here where they're outside. So this conversation in the little square is the beginning of the outdoor conversation. But because they were here and said, hey, can I talk to you a minute? And went over here, but you don't need to show that in the comic. Again, you got to, each page is real estate. You got to have as much relevant stuff for your story on every inch of the page. So you don't need that. The reader can decipher that as long as it's not too complicated. So he's out there talking to his buddy. And then you flip the page and this guy gets home. And boom, his whole house is torn up. His girlfriend's gone. And that's how they decide to end it, where they showcase this mom and pop style, a family bar. There's an outbreak. The family bar is kind of like the mingling area. There's someone who used to be friends in the town who has come back into town. I would have to say that for a first issue, for someone who enjoys the horror genre, the zombie type genre, Outbreak, infected people, I would have to say they did a really good job. However, some of the characters felt a little stale. We had like 3 whole pages of a guy faking to kidnap his girlfriend. I kind of feel like maybe those pages should have been used for character development instead. And that's why I call that cheap. So that would be one of my main criticisms. Other than that, I came away from this interested in the infection more than giving a damn about any of the characters. So you can utilize that if you're writing a monster or a mystery or a zombie or something that has an interesting element. You don't need to overload your first issue with character development. You can gradually implant that along the way, like seeds along the way, as long as you have an element in there that's attracting the reader or the audience, which in this case would be the virus, the outbreak, and who's infected and who's acting weird. All right, so again, this is the second of a little test run. If you guys have any thoughts or opinions or questions or suggestions about something to look at or to discuss, go ahead and sound off in the comment box. And until then, I will pick out a couple more. Maybe we'll give another video or two and feel it out and see if you guys are interested in these. And I'll try to keep them limited to around 10 minutes, 10 to 15. I think 20 and plus is a little too much unless we're really breaking them down. Thoughts and opinions in the comment box. I'm done talking. It's your turn.